Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. Let's be honest, it's a difficult time for United, not just on the pitch, not just with the Glazers off the pitch, but we're going to be talking about this Antony scenario. Purposely haven't really said anything till this morning, but we'll talk about that now that he's been dropped by the Brazil squad. What does that mean for Antony? What does it mean in relation to the Mason Greenwood last 18 months? And is there some hypocrisy here? We'll also talk about the Jadon Sancho story. Does he have a future at Manchester United? Ten Hag is getting it from all angles and not in a good way. He's getting absolutely pummeled. I saw stuff from like Simon Jordan and other people yesterday. I don't like it. It leaves a bad taste in the mouth. And also, we're going to talk about Amrabat. Really interesting story around Amrabat. You might have seen some of the tweets on @UnitedStandMUFC on Twitter. Shambles, an absolute shambles. Athletic have got it. They've got the story. Fair play again. We'll get into that as well and a few other bits. But look, lots to get involved in. Get involved in the chat. Bring Ahmad back, says Jefferson. It's interesting. I was just talking to Beth because I'm in the studio and she was saying, you know what? We all know that Jadon Sancho has been ill-advised doing that statement on Sunday night and it could cost him his career at Man United. Imagine if he'd just kept his gob shut for 24 hours, he'd be playing right wing by Christmas because it ain't looking good for Antony, let's be honest. And it just shows you the modern footballer and the people they have around them on how thick they are, how stupid they are in relation to brand awareness and, you know, manners, respect. If Sancho keeps his gob shut, he's got a great chance of winning his spot back. Now, he's jeopardising that, of course. So, why has he got such a good chance of getting his spot back? Well, look, Antony. A lot of people saying, what about Antony? Antony's got to go, says Hector. What's he done? Well, look, I'll read, look, before we get into opinion, I've played the game. You know, when Mason Greenwood story broke 18 months ago on the January and the audio was out and the pictures were out and we did a video quite quickly and I purposely turned comments off because it was a very serious incident and through the background that I've had working in law, I knew how it was going to work out. It always makes me concerned when I see other content creators who've got no idea about the serious nature of this and no idea of law and they start doing videos or articles saying what we know, the truth. And I'm like, mate, you've got absolutely no idea about these types of investigations and you're pontificating for views, really. So yesterday, loads of people saying, when are you going to do a video, when are you going to do a video? And it wasn't because I like Antony as a player, because I liked Mason Greenwood as a player, generational talent. It was because I wasn't going to start doing content and nobody on this channel was going to start doing content based on quotes from the victim who, again, if there is a criminal case going on, the victim should not be doing that publicly. Now, I don't know how it works in Brazil, but they shouldn't be doing that publicly. They should be leaving it to the police. So I didn't really want to do a video yesterday commenting on the victim's quotes publicly, because ultimately, if this is as that person is saying it is, then the police should be dealing with it. But what we can deal with and what we can react to, because it's coming from the BBC, is that Brazil have dropped Manchester United winger Antony following allegations of abuse by his former girlfriend. The Brazilian Football Federation said the 23-year-old had been withdrawn from the squad after facts became public that need to be investigated. So, look, that's the action of Brazil. You know, one of the most, if not the most respected, one of the most respected national football teams in the world. They've dropped Antony. That's a major statement. And I think we now look at Manchester United, and this is where I come in and say, look, I don't know how the Brazilian criminal system works. So I'm not even going to say what's going to happen next, because I would be, you know, I'm not talking about the UK system here. But if Brazil are dropping him from their squad, then that is a very big decision. Now, we've seen with Arsenal, they've got a player that has been accused of very serious allegations. That player's never been named, could still be playing for Arsenal. That's Arsenal's decision. Manchester United with Mason Greenwood, I think, made the right choice to suspend him. And ultimately, he missed the last 18 months of football. Brazil have made the decision to withdraw Antony from their squad. There's major issues here, and there's no point. I always said through the summer with Mason Greenwood, you can bury your head in the sand, or you can realise that a decision will be made. He'll either play for United again or he won't. And obviously he's playing for Getafe now. With Antony, this ain't going away. let's be honest, let's call it for what it is. This is not going to go away. I think it's dangerous to comment on something when it's people just talking about it publicly. You know, I saw the quotes yesterday from the victim, or the alleged victim, and I was like, well, this should be being dealt with legally. Like, it shouldn't be being dealt with on social media. But now that Brazil have taken that action, then obviously this is now football crossing into real life. And Man United have got a big decision to make here. And I think as fans, we've got to try. Look, we're always going to be driven by emotion. And you know, ultimately, I think this is a massive issue for Manchester United. They have to be consistent here, and I don't see any other conclusion other than suspension, really, because everybody who wanted Mason Greenwood back is going to be saying, well, Antony's got to be dealt with the same way. And I don't really see how Manchester United can't suspend him. I think that they have to be consistent. I don't think there's going to be any different reaction to this from any of the charities or anybody who was outraged about what Mason Greenwood was alleged to do. I don't see there being any different reaction in relation to Antony. I don't. And in some cases, I think it could actually be worse. So I think United have got a big decision to make. On a footballing level, I'll tell you what I think in a minute. On a human level, it doesn't matter whether you're Lionel Messi or you're Harry Maguire. In relation, and obviously I'm not saying either of those players are involved in anything like this. I'm talking about a talent. Harry Maguire's not very good at football. Lionel Messi is one of the greatest players ever played. If something comes out in your private life like this, especially with how United dealt with Greenwood, they can't be inconsistent. They can't be hypocritical. We talk about VAR decisions and we want consistency. We're going to have consistency from Manchester United. So they're going to have to. As soon as Brazil have dropped him, I've well, that's it. United have got a decision to make. If Brazil had kept playing him, then United can probably go, well, look, Brazil are playing him. It's happened in Brazil. But because Brazil have dropped him, I think United have got a big decision to make. And also, you've got to remember that this case probably will go to court. Probably not go to court. Could get dropped. Could get found guilty. All the cards are on the table. It's going to have a big impact on Antony, who is a young, very emotional player. We see that all the time. He's quite petulant on the pitch. So he's a heart on his sleeve type of player who's got some very serious allegations against him. It's a huge issue for Manchester United. It's another issue for Manchester United. And I think as United fans, we're probably sat here going, well, look, first of all, football doesn't really matter when it comes to these sort of allegations. And you want the truth and you want, the truth to be dealt with. But on a purely footballing point of view, what is going on with this football club? You've got Antony, Greenwood, very serious allegations. You've got the Sancho stuff, which is completely different, but, the last 10 years, the Glazers, it's just an absolute mess. And you cannot sit there and say United should have been aware of this when buying these players or bringing them through the youth setup. The individuals have got to take responsibility for their own actions. But I do think that it's almost like, when it rains, it pours. And I think United at the moment, and I was saying this to Ben Foster yesterday, we're rotten. The fans are not rotten. And there's certain people in that club that are not rotten. But unfortunately, that I wouldn't say cursed, that's ridiculous, but we are rotten. And that club needs breaking down and starting again. And, why is it that other clubs who are doing well never have this problem? Why is it with Sir Alex we didn't really have these problems? People will say, well, it was a different time, Mark, social media was different. But why don't Man City have these problems? And I think it's just down to discipline, mentality, and the type of players that you recruit. And nobody's saying that, look, as a modern footballer, I'd be very worried at the moment because ultimately there is the flip side of the coin that, someone makes an allegation about you, you're dropped from your national team, you don't play football for 18 months. So if I was a footballer now, you're a footballer, but you've also got to be absolutely spot on in your private life. Otherwise, your career will be, and quite rightly, if you've done anything wrong, destroyed. So why? I get it. I think this morning a lot of people will be going, why Manchester United? Why Manchester United? Why is it always a Manchester United player? The owners are saying they can't get rid of Maguire and Sancho and Scott because they're on too much wages, but they're idiots. You gave them the power to terminate the contract and get rid of them, says Nathan Allen. We're a bad reality show, says Wackass, and it's turning into a cesspit, Mark, says Glenn. It's so bad at Manchester United at the moment that I genuinely think that obviously we want the new ownership, but that new ownership has to come in and break it down. You know, literally tear it down and start again. I'm looking at the entire squad and I'm going, not many of you are going to be here. You know, I'm looking at a project now that, you know, we always talk about 2 or 3 years. I'm looking at a complete rebuild of the football club from top to bottom. I just don't think we can get away with little fixes now. I think the whole club is toxic from top to bottom. And I think that there's some good people there, but it's a PR nightmare. Mark, how the club does not consider a back injury for Amrabat serious? We're going to talk about that, Ibsy, because obviously that's football related as well. People saying Ronaldo was right. Look, I think that the athletic thing's great, and we're going to talk about that. But look, I just want to say, open heart surgery, says Keith B as well. Unfortunately, we're talking, I mean, the Sancho stuff I didn't like on Sunday night. But at least it's football petulance. At least it's indiscipline, stupidity in relation to football. You know, what I don't like about this and what I never liked about the Greenwood thing is that football fans who want to talk about football are getting dragged into very serious things that will impact football. There will be people this morning going, well, I don't really care what Antony's done. We need him on the wing. We spent 85 million euros on him and he's just got to play. We can't have another Greenwood where we lose a player for 18 months. My honest opinion on this is, and look, it matters not what I think about the player, and you know I liked both those players, but you know my stance with Greenwood in the end. You can't be a hypocrite on this. You can't be a hypocrite on this. There's so much hypocritical behaviour if we allow Antony to keep playing. I think, and ultimately he may be proved innocent, but you can't treat one player differently to the other. There are differences between the Greenwood and the Antony situation. Obviously, we all know what the differences are. We all heard it and everything. But I just think that, you know, ultimately you are dealing with serious domestic abuse in both cases. And I don't think it's a good look for Manchester United to deal with one differently than the other. But I will concede, and I don't normally concede anything about Man United, but I put myself into their shoes as the CEO or whatever, and you'd be sat there going, why is it always us? Like, you know, this is a problem. Like, this is an £85 million player that's only been here a year that we could be losing for a year. You know, it's an absolute mess. But remember, one thing to consider here: when Mason Greenwood got suspended, who was the manager? Ralph Rangnick, not Erik ten Hag. Erik ten Hag inherited the suspension of Mason Greenwood. Will Erik ten Hag, as manager, have a different say on this? And ultimately, Arsenal have dealt with it very differently with a player of theirs as well. Cyril says, Pellistri has more room to complain than Sancho. That's a kid who genuinely does deserve the minutes. His chance has to be now, and Højlund will benefit, says Cyril. Thank you very much, Cyril. I bad worded there. I meant the owners are the idiots who gave the contract. City's owners would terminate their contract, says Nathan. That does make more sense. Let's be honest, Mark. Ten Hag is clueless. Was an Arteta masterclass, says Jack. I want to talk about Ten Hag in a bit. Erik ten Hag is just an average manager. Wouldn't play Ronaldo, but would field Maguire and Evans against Arsenal, says Da Vinci. Mate, you do realise that Varane was injured, Martinez wanted to come off injured, and Lindelof had to come off injured as well. I don't blame Erik ten Hag for Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire playing at the weekend. I blame the board for giving Johnny Evans a contract and for not getting rid of Harry Maguire. Morning, Mark. The Antony Sancho scenarios could make way for honest young lads like Pellistri and Ahmad. It's symbolic of us needing a total restart, says James. Look, I don't blame Man United for this. I don't even know how this is going to happen. But I would say to any young footballer coming through, you have a gift. You have a gift to be a footballer that most of us dreamt about as kids. Be careful who you've got around you. You're not a god. You're not untouchable. These people around you want to make money off you. These friends want to be around you because you're popular. These people are bad for you. These people will tell you you're great, and you will think that you can do what you like. And then you might get into a situation where you think you can do what you like, and you do something, and your career is over, and those people will walk away because you're not worth anything anymore. If you're a footballer or a young footballer coming through, try and learn the basics of, morals and respect, because these people around you are toxic. They see you as money. And when you're not money, they'll walk away. And anybody can make a mistake, and anybody can do something that will fuck their lives up. And unfortunately, we're seeing this happen a lot at United at the moment. And whether those people are rightly or wrongly accused, the outcome is going to be you're not going to be playing for Manchester United for a period of time. And I do think that in football, there are so many toxic people around these players advising them badly because they just see them as money. And these people, you can be scoring a hat-trick one weekend and not playing for 18 months the next. Surround yourself with good people, good morals, and make good decisions, because I do feel for the young footballer these days. I know how the industry works. It's all about who's going to pay them the most money, and it's not about morals. It's not about respect. It's not about respecting yourself. And unfortunately, football is corrupted by money. But I think it's also, when you've got somebody who's telling you from 15-year-olds you're great, everything you do is great, how hard is it to actually know where your boundaries are and things like that? And this is something United have failed at. I don't think United look at the player. I don't think they look at the personality. I think they look at the footballer and they don't look at the personality. And we're going away from Antony now, and we're going to talk about like the Amrabat deal and what's going on at United with Sancho. I think United recruit footballers, and I don't think they do the background work on mentality. How do United go from 1-0 down at Anfield to 7? How do United keep, dropping the ball and, losing games? Because mentality-wise, we don't have the right players. And that's a huge part of recruitment now. Sir Alex Ferguson used to be very big on this. Am I going to, if I've got a footballer, right? If I've got two right wingers and they're both going to cost me 80 million quid, one of them's slightly better than the other, but he's a bit of a party boy. He likes to go out partying, he's not in a settled relationship, he sleeps in, he's on FIFA until the early hours. Am I going to go for him, or am I going to go for the guy that, doesn't drink, he's got a very stable family life, friendship group around him, he's in a relationship, he doesn't go out partying, he gets to bed on time. I'm going to go for the one who's not as good as that, but I'm going to go for that because I think that professional sport isn't just about talent. It's about the mentality. It's about the depression, mental health, whatever you want to call it. I'm a great footballer. Look at Gaza. I'm a great footballer, but I've got my demons. I'd go for a player. If a player's a 9 out of 10 every week, not every week, but they're a 9 out of 10, but they've got their demons. But then there's an 8 out of 10 who has a stable, Harry Kane. I'm going to go for Harry Kane. I'm going to go for that because it's that consistency and mentality that will, Man City are brilliant at it. Man City are brilliant at getting players that are very, very good, but also are very, grounded. No harmony or unity in the club. People are on different pages, says Anil. Well, look, let's move on because I know a lot of people want to talk about this. So, look, I want to talk about this Amrabat story because it's really interesting, but let's just talk about the situation and the fallout from Sunday very briefly. So, Lindelof is apparently with Sweden and Martinez is with Argentina. So that's good news. And we know that Varane's going to be back very, very soon. Fabrizio was saying this morning that Harry Maguire wants to fight for his place at Manchester United. Well, as long as everybody's fit, he won't get anywhere near the team, so he can fight as much as he likes. I'm not really interested in that. Every time we mention Harry Maguire, it's in a negative way because he's just not good enough for Manchester United. But obviously, still very, very relevant is the Jadon Sancho story. Now, there is a lot going around Jadon Sancho at the moment about, the club's not very happy with what he did. Surprise, surprise. And they are looking at whether he'll play for United again. There is not really any expectation that there will be a conversation with Erik ten Hag this week because of internationals. Given the club invested 80 million in Antony, says Ami, I think a basic background check into the player's character, personality would have been in order. Another reason why we need a competent director of football. You know what, Ami, though? I don't think any football club is going to find out that a footballer behind closed doors is capable of serious offences. I don't think that is a football club's job, much the same as it's not McDonald's job or it's not, other jobs. And remember, Antony has played for Ten Hag. Like, he's got before he came to Man United, he's got the ultimate character reference from the manager, and Ten Hag wouldn't know Antony was capable of those sort of things, allegedly. So I think you've got to be very, very careful about that. But, you know, I do agree that United probably should be doing more homework on players in relation to their, you know, effectively their mental state and their home life, because you can probably reduce the risk of these things like happening, but I don't think you can ever really say you shouldn't buy that player because now they've been accused of that. I think it's difficult. I think it's on, as I said, I think it's on the player. I think if there's any young players listening, you know, I'd be looking at the Greenwood situation, I'd be looking at this Antony situation, I'd be saying, right, how do I avoid that situation? And the obvious thing is to be a grounded, respectful human being who doesn't do those sort of things and will never cross those barriers. But I'd also be looking at my friendship groups, my agent, you know, my fellow teammates, and, you know, I'd be trying to avoid those scenarios, you know, where it's a night off and you're going down a local club and keep, you know, treating women like, you know, it's a, you know, a drink. I'll have a bit of that. I'll have a bit of that. You know, because look at me, who I am, living this rock and roll lifestyle. When you're a professional athlete whose career is on thin ice, if you do something wrong, I think footballers in the modern day with social media, they've got to be professional. You know, you can't be out partying in clubs and stuff and being, you know, one relationship to another relationship. I'll have a bit of this. I'll have a bit of that. You know, you're not a rock star. You're a professional footballer for maybe 10 years. You know, treat your body and other people with respect. You know, you're paid money to play football. You're not paid money to be, you know, rock star lifestyle doing whatever. No harmony or unity in the club. We've done that one. But look, going back to Jadon Sancho, I think that, and we're going to talk about Amrabat in a minute. I think in relation to Jadon Sancho, what's basically come out in the last sort of overnight is that United are trying to figure out what to do. They're not happy with what he did. There's talk of a couple of weeks' wages fine, which he should get. Ten Hag is not happy and stands by what he says. And you know what I would say about Sancho is the silence is deafening. Erik Ten Hag was asked a question, why didn't Jadon Sancho play? And basically he said, I've got 4 of the wingers that I think are ahead of him at the moment. He can't lie and say he was injured. He can't lie and say he was ill. And he can't say no comment, because all 3 of those are very inflammatory. So all these people that I've seen in the media and in the fan base criticising Erik Ten Hag because he said that he didn't pick Sancho because he didn't think he was good enough for this game. What else could he have said? He's been asked the question. I don't think there's any answer better than the one that he gave. And within half an hour, that player has done a statement online on Sunday night. It's now Tuesday morning. Jadon Sancho can put a statement out within minutes of his manager and his boss explaining why he didn't get picked and calling him a liar. But a day and a half after that, he can't put a statement out apologising. And I think that, to me, is the shame. Jadon Sancho should have realised straight away from the backlash online that he'd made a mistake, and he should have apologised. Whether he means it or not, if he's so into his brand and his reputation, he should have apologised, because every other club, every other national team, well, it only matters for England, every other teammate is going to look at him and go, you've come across really badly there, mate. The manager has said he hasn't picked you, and you've come out and said the manager's wrong, that you're a scapegoat. We're hearing stuff like, you know, he thinks that Antony gets preferential treatment. Well, look, on a footballing level, did Erik Ten Hag spend £75 million and give Jadon Sancho 350k a week? No, Ollie did. Ten Hag spent €85 million and gave 200 grand a week to Antony, who he knows from Ajax. Correct me if I'm wrong, might be a bit of slow sports news here, maybe a bit of breaking news. I predict Erik Ten Hag is going to pick Antony every time over Sancho, because Antony is the player that Ten Hag's reputation rests upon, not Sancho. He inherited Sancho, he bought Antony. Guess what? I used to play for a team when I was 14. I wanted to play centre mid. I always used to get put left wing because the centre midfielder was the coach's son. I felt it was a bit unfair. I think it was a bit unfair that he got played in midfield even though I was better than him. And I think it was because it was his dad who was the coach. Yeah, life's not fair, Jadon. Welcome to the world of real life. It's not fair. And maybe this is the problem with the footballer these days. They've got so many people around them saying, it's not fair. You're the best in the world. You're the best thing since sliced bread. You're brilliant. They don't and cannot deal with Hello, you're not always going to win the race. Hello, you're not actually the prettiest person in the picture. You know, this is real life. And I don't think many Man United players can deal, as fans we can deal with not being bloody first best, we're bloody used to being fifth best. But they cannot do, they clearly cannot deal with the fact that you're not the best player, you're not the best right winger in the club. I don't think you're the best right winger in the club. Well, I do. I think I am, but you're not the manager, and I don't think you are. Welcome to the real world. You've missed out. Who's been for a job they think they should get, and then someone else gets the job because they know the boss? I have. I'm sure many of you have. You know what you do in them situations? You prove them wrong. You work harder. When there's a barrier in front of you, and it's an unfair barrier, you punch it harder. You climb harder. You train harder. You don't go, it's not fair, he's an idiot. And that's basically what's happened. It's terrible advice. It's petulant. And Sancho might, and look, he's not the only person to do this. Andy Weatherall, thank you very much for gifting a membership. If I was Sancho's advisor or friend and he said, I'm thinking about putting your statement out, I'd probably say to him, I think you should be playing ahead of Antony. I really do. I do. But if you put that statement out, mate, it's over. It's over. Even though I agree with you, even though I think you're, and I don't, I'm just being his mate. Even if, he might take me out for a nice meal, he's loaded. I'd go, you know what? I think you're better than Antony. But the best thing you can do is not put that statement out, is not moan. It is work harder and harder and harder. And if by January you're still not getting a game time, at least you've kept yourself quiet, you've shown a good attitude, you go to Spurs and you prove him wrong. Do not put that statement out. And that's the thing that's the worrying thing is that, and I don't care, look, I'd be doing this on That's Football. If that was an Arsenal player or a Man City player, I'd still be saying, who do you think you are? You know, you shouldn't be doing that. So I think Sancho's just been advised. Goldbridge on the left, it's a travesty, like Scholes for England, says James. I know. Mark, look at Aaron Wan-Bissaka was maybe the first on Eric Ten Hag's sell list. Exactly, Tony. Exactly. All this bullshit about Ten Hag saying he can't handle big players. Sancho is nowhere near a big player. Sancho has had many chances to prove all the critics wrong. Look, John, I like Sancho. I think there's a good player there. But I also think there's a terrible attitude there. And that's just perception. I've never met him. I don't know him. But I was disgusted with that on Sunday. You know what? And if I was on the bus, if I was Bruno Fernandes or Johnny Evans or, you know, Marcus Rashford, if I'm on that bus or plane home after that loss and I see that statement from a player that wasn't even deemed good enough to be on the bench, I'd be like, mate, you've let us down, you've let the fan base down, you've embarrassed the football club for your own personal gain, and it's going to damage you as well. I'd be like, you know, what are you doing? But what do I think will happen with Sancho? I think Ten Hag's sort of screwed, if I'm being honest with you. And that's where I wanted to get to. Long answer, I know. But, you know, Harry Maguire was put up for sale and had the captaincy took off him and was told he wasn't part of Ten Hag's plans. Game week 4, he's playing centre-back against Arsenal because he decided he didn't want to leave and he's going to play for England on Saturday. Player power is still more powerful than the manager at this football club. We've had hints that it's not. David De Gea went, but come on. Was that manager power? De Gea had no player power. His contract ended at the end of June. United were ruthless, but it was an open goal. You know, De Gea can do nothing. His contract ended on June the 30th. He can't keep turning up to Carrington. He's not going to get paid. So, yeah, it was ruthless to change the goalkeeper, but it was also easy. You know, he was out of contract. Ronaldo, that was probably ruthless. You know, that was a power struggle. But there was also enough people in the dressing room to back Ten Hag, and also Ronaldo, I think, realised he was done at this level and wanted out. And Piers, you know, if he had not done the Piers Morgan interview, would Ronaldo have left United? So the Piers Morgan interview was probably a godsend to United. The end of De Gea's contract was a godsend. So look, I think Ten Hag wants to be ruthless, but he doesn't have the backing. He doesn't have the backing. Like, if De Gea had 2 years on his contract, would De Gea still be here? 100%. 100%. If Ronaldo didn't do the Piers Morgan interview and decided he was going to run his contract down, would he have stayed for the whole season? 100%. So we talk about ruthless Ten Hag. I think he wants to be ruthless, but I don't think the club can actually back him. Look, he wanted Maguire out. Maguire's still here. Harry Maguire's got more power than Ten Hag. He wants Jadon Sancho out. Jadon Sancho's still here. Jadon Sancho has publicly made him look stupid. I think Jadon Sancho will play probably against Brighton because Ten Hag will look weak. I think Ten Hag looks weak when Harry Maguire plays. I think he will look weak when Jadon Sancho plays because these two people, and there are others, have basically challenged his leadership. But what's he supposed to do? Antony's probably going to get suspended. So Sancho comes into the team. And the bad thing about that is, and we all know it, is that when Sancho starts playing well for United again, or starts playing for United again, any other player's going to look at it and go, we lost at Arsenal. The manager said why he didn't pick a player, and that player publicly humiliated him, and now he's playing first team football. I might have a go at that. And that's the problem. The discipline is gone at United, and player power is still very, very, very prevalent. Mark, it feels like I'm supporting Man United. I'm supporting the Glazers. Can't bring myself to do it anymore. Glazers out, or I'm moving on, says Toby. Well, I think you should always support your club. Lord Turtle says, is Antony innocent? Well, it's not for us to say, is it? We don't know. I just think there has to be some consistency. Otherwise, we're going to get called hypocrites. Let's talk about the Amrabat story, says JJ. So this is really interesting. I don't think it's going to make you feel any better. But effectively, The Athletic have led on this. Very, very good story. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a director of football. And he woke up and he wanted some porridge. No, this is the story. So once upon a time, it's the never-ending story. It's the story of trying to sign Amrabat. So Manchester United spent all summer trying to sign Amrabat. The Athletic are saying that last Wednesday, Manchester United were trying to get a loan deal done for around £3 million. £3 million. Fiorentina said, no, it's off. United then said, I think his name's Hargreaves, I want to fly over to Florence and have a chat. And they said, don't bother, it's a wasted journey unless you're going to pay the €10 million loan fee with an agreement to buy in a year's time. United were like, well, I'll come over and have a chat. Over they go, they pay the €10 million. That's from a credible source. It's in a credible article. That is incredible. It's incredible, isn't it? You know, we basically spent all summer trying to negotiate a ridiculously cheap loan deal to spend exactly what Fiorentina want right on transfer deadline day. And that is the story of Manchester United when it comes to negotiations, is that this has happened time and time again. Even when you go back to Harry Maguire with Leicester, that deal took about 8 weeks and we still paid 80 million quid. It's ridiculous because you look at that Arsenal game and you go, if Amrabat's in that midfield, or at least on the bench to come on for half an hour, do we lose that game? Would he have made us a better side? Yes. But he didn't play in that game because we spent probably about 6 weeks trying to save €5 million, which I would argue that €5 million to get a win at Arsenal, what's more valuable, €5 million or 3 points at Arsenal in relation to the confidence that those 3 points would have given us for the rest of the season? The major problem is the Glazers being here, no direction, no leadership, indecision and competence. They are destroying this club from inside out, says Showtime Win. And I think a big part of the discipline at the end of last year was the possibility that the club would be sold and more ruthless owners would come in. With the Glazers staying, the status quo is the same and player power reigns, says Marcus Laird. Yeah, so look, that Amrabat story is massively depressing. We've basically got owned. And look, you know, I've said it time and time again. There are people out there that want to pretend that it's, you know, the Glazers are the only problem and those negotiating are actually good at what they're doing. They're not. They're not very good. They're very, very bad negotiators. But interestingly, apparently Amrabat has got a minor back injury. Now, we've heard of this before. It's the same minor back injury that Højlund had, by the sounds of it. So is Amrabat actually injured? Well, I don't think he is injured because I'm pretty sure he's been called up for Morocco and will play for Morocco. But I don't really know what the context of the injury is in relation to Amrabat. But I don't think it will be anything major. But I think the major feedback from me was that the transfer story itself was just another embarrassing episode in Manchester United's transfer negotiation ability. But I don't think the injury is going to be a problem. I think the general status of Manchester United's squad and the injuries that we have is a problem, as we know, with Luke Shaw and Varane, and there's a sharp intake of breath with Martinez and Lindelof at the weekend. But I don't really see. I don't actually. I think you can be a bit over the top about these things, and I certainly think that Amrabat, I'd just be keeping an eye on whether he plays for Morocco, because if he plays for Morocco, then there's clearly not an injury. Look, there's been a lot of negativity on the show this morning. It's a news show. We can only go with the news. But I do just want to say, if there's one positive that came out of the weekend, and I think we all saw it, Rasmus was just a breath of fresh air in that team. I mean, he should be sponsored by Airwaves. It was something different that we probably haven't seen in a Manchester United forward for a long time. How a positive, Mark? How much better with the number 9? Exactly, Nicholas. Amrabat, more like I've got a bad back, says Marcus Laird. Can you picture Antony in a Premier League winning side, says Sticks? And hi, Mark, surely there has to be evidence first, says Glenn. I don't know what you're talking about, Glenn. Oh, you're probably talking about Antony. Well, I think in relation to Antony, it's Brazil have dropped him. So that means Man United have got a decision to make, because it's Brazil's a football team and they've dropped him because of the allegations. So all eyes go to Man United, rightly or wrongly. They go to Man United, and people will be looking at Man United and going, his national team have dropped him because of the allegations. What are you going to do? My prediction is, I don't know. I actually don't know. What would I do? This is horrible to say because I don't need to say it. I'm not the CEO of Man United. If it was me, I'd suspend him. Yeah, because Brazil have done it and we did it with Greenwood, and I think we've got to be consistent. But I remember Simon Jordan saying this, and he's right. There's also a case to say you can't just suspend every footballer who's been accused of something that they've not been found guilty of. And I agree with that. And also, not knowing much about the Antony case, the Mason Greenwood one was very different because it literally went on social media, the audio and the pictures. There was absolute outrage. There's no way he could have played for Man United, the next weekend. With the Antony one, it's about, and it's not for me to decide, it's about how different is it? Is it the same? Is it a bit the same? Is it enough not the same that he can still play? Where do you draw the line? And to be honest, I think if I was the CEO, I'd be sat there saying I'm suspending him unless someone can really tell me that it's a good idea not to, because if we suspend him, we can't be criticised. But if we play him and we get it wrong, we're hypocrites and worse. But I completely agree with the point that people will be making. You cannot suspend every footballer that gets accused of something, because over the last 20 years, numerous footballers have been arrested for, rape, accused of rape, allegedly rape. And then it completely disappears, and they have very good football careers. Well, if they'd been suspended while that was going on, I get it. And, if a footballer, drink driving or stuff like that, do they get this is why the modern footballer, the young footballer, I'm sure we'd all say it, you're a professional athlete, act like it for the years that you're a professional athlete. Don't fall into the trappings of you're a brand, you're untouchable, you're a rock star. Do all that when you've retired. Do all that where it's not going to ruin your career. I think there needs to be a mentality shift, especially in the British game, with footballers. Most, if you look at someone like Juan Mata, people like that, they came into this country, they came to Manchester United, professional athletes with a very, strict mentality around it. They're the sort of role models you need in the modern game. Ronald says, in the real world, it's called nepotism and favouritism, which is still very rife in the world of football and many other businesses. He's talking about Sancho there, and you're absolutely right. Hi, Mark. I'm a neutral viewer. Appreciate your commentary. Amidst all the negativity, what strengths do you think the club has and should be built, says Ina. And honestly, I think he should stay. This is a Brazilian matter, so leave it to the Brazilians. If they call him back to face charges, arrest, then he should be suspended at that point, says Marcus. It's an opinion, Marcus. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I want to talk a positive, because I think we all need a bit of positivity. Yeah, I really was impressed with Rasmus at the weekend. I think already, I mean, I knew a lot about him from Atalanta, and I suppose I want to just say this, because a few people said to me, did Rasmus live up to your expectations? Did he overachieve? Were you surprised by his cameo against Arsenal? To which the answer would be, well, he didn't score a goal, but everything he did was exactly what I thought it would be. You know, obviously a hat-trick against Arsenal and winning the game would have been, you know, immense, but I didn't expect that. What I did expect is what I saw. No fear, physicality, speed, aggression, pressing. That makes a big difference to Manchester United, because mentality, consistency, aggression, pressing, you know, aggression is the aggression thing was the big thing for me. Saliba and Gabriel are, you know, they're no shrinking violets, and he didn't give a toss. He really didn't give a toss. And I think that they're the sort of players we want at Man United. If you could have more Rasmus Højlunds, then Ten Hag will kick on and United will kick on. I think he's a breath of fresh air, like I say, and it's only a cameo, but I think that there is a positive there. You know, if we didn't have Rasmus, and hopefully Amrabat will come in and do the same thing. We need more players like that. You know, I'm not saying that they're going to be the world's best players. I hope Rasmus is. But I think also mentality is so important. You know, I think people get lost with people like Scott McTominay and go, well, he's passionate and he cares. And he does. But he lacks ability. I think you do need the Scott McTominay mentality, but you also need the ability to go with it. United have got some really good players who don't have the mentality. We've got some people who've got the mentality but don't have the ability. We need more players that have got the mentality and the ability. And I thought Rasmus was a real breath of fresh air. And you know what? A lot of stuff has been said about Erik ten Hag, and I think that, you know, when you've lost 2 and won 2, we were lucky against Wolves. Forest we did deserve to win, but we made a meal out of it. Spurs deserved to beat us, and Arsenal did beat us. It's a bad start to the season. We've replicated the start to last season, but he's had a year, and he's spent 400 million quid. So Ten Hag is going to get criticised. I'm not here to say nobody should be criticising Ten Hag. He doesn't deserve it. You will always get scrutinised as a Man United manager. I would expect it. You would expect it. But what I would say is that there are levels to this game. There is intelligence in this game, and we can't sit here and say, you know, there is so much going on in that football club that the manager can't control. Like the sale of the football club is a joke. The recruitment is a joke. Some of these players, you know, Jadon Sancho wasn't bought by Ten Hag. You know, if Ten Hag had bought Sancho and Sancho had done that statement on Sunday night, part of me would be going, Eric, you bought the lad, but he didn't. This is a petulant player that wasn't bought by Ten Hag, you know, having a moan publicly. That's not on Ten Hag. So he's very unlucky with that. He also wasn't the media pick. They wanted Poch, so they've been waiting for this. My stance is, as football fans, we've got to back this manager. We've been down this road too long before. I've apologised to Jose. I mean, he did deserve to get sacked at the end, but you only learn from experience. A few people have said to me, I can't believe you're siding with Ten Hag when Mourinho did it to Luke Shaw and Martial and you threw Mourinho under the bus. And I was like, well, yeah, I did. I did, because I learned from that. You know, I learned from that. And if that happened now, I'd stick up with Mourinho, because I know these players will throw the manager under the bus. They will down tools, that they're toxic. I'm not backing a player ahead of Ten Hag. I'm certainly not going to back a CEO or an owner ahead of Ten Hag. We've been down this road so many times. I can't believe we've got fans in our fan base going, Ten Hag's rubbish, get rid of him. I think they do it for clicks and kicks. I really do. I think they do it because they think they're intelligent. I think they're doing it because they want to be controversial. Maybe they're bitter. I don't know. But it's always the same people doing it. And I don't think they do understand football. I really do not. Because what are you going to do? Who's the next manager? Well, I think it should be De Zerbi or Nagelsmann, because they're the hit manager to go for. They come into the club, get a bit of money, have a good first year, can't get rid of the players they want to get rid of. Those players turn on him. The CEO and the board scapegoat the manager to preserve themselves, and then De Zerbi or Nagelsmann get the sack. We've been down this road so many times. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. Nobody can convince me that Erik ten Hag is being given a free run at being a Man United manager. He's going down exactly the same track in year 2 that Van Gaal, Mourinho and Ole did. And we should see that track because we've been down that track with all of those managers. This is a manager that has had massive, 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 massive turmoil in relation to a horrific summer transfer window where players he wanted he didn't get and players he wanted to sell he's having to play. Mutiny, again, in the dressing room, which we are seeing evidently. Major, major things that are out of his control. You know, the Mason Greenwood thing, the Antony thing, and God knows what else United have got going on. The sale of the football club, which is, you know, a major, major incident in any club's history is when you get sold. It normally happens every 20, 30 years. That's been going on for most of his reign. And then you've got people in the press going, I don't think he's good enough to be Man United manager. I don't like his tactics. I don't like his team. And I'm like, you know what? You are just doing it for clicks and kicks. You are not giving an ounce of sympathy or appreciation to the situation. You're judging Ten Hag like he's Pep Guardiola and he's lost 2 games from 6 in a very stable football club and atmosphere. He is in absolute turmoil, is the best word. Confusion, chaos is all around him. Knives are out all around him. As fans, we should be putting those knives away and going, look, come and have a hug. Like, you know, you might not be 100% convinced by Ten Hag, but he represents probably the only positive at the football club. He represents an obsession to win, and he wants to win everything. Is that not what you represent as well? So I just do not believe that he should be scapegoated by anybody who understands what's going on at the football club. And that's my stance on it. Look at all the players we get in the last few years. None of them made a career elsewhere. It's like United is a career-destroying platform. It says Talal. And back Erik ten Hag, took Sir Alex Ferguson 4 years. Club is in a bad state and it's not his fault, says D. Hayes. And also, can I just say this? You know what? I think at points last season, especially when we were, you know, in the top 4, we won a trophy. We thought that Qatar would have the club in the summer. There was probably parts of me that thought, you know, season after this, we'll be challenging for a title. Well, I look at it today and I look at the problems and I think really 5 years is the most logical thing to say because I feel that we've got to tear it down and start again. I really do think that the club in its current state is in chaos and it needs breaking down and starting again. I really do. Andy Weatherall's just gifted a sub. Thank you, mate. Nearly 20,000 people watching us in the studio. Don't forget, obviously, if anything big happens, we'll react. But at 4 o'clock today, Ricky, Goldbridge and Beth in the studio. We're going to sort of talk about the season a little bit, where we're at. We were going to do it yesterday, but obviously a lot of stuff has broken. So people say you don't do any content with Ricky. Well, 4 o'clock today, we will be doing a bit of a show with Ricky and Beth and me. 20k on a morning show is fantastic. You're legends, you're legends. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. You know where we are every morning at 10, every night at 8, 4 o'clock today. Get involved with the United Stand. Look, a lot of people want to talk. Serious time. Serious time. We can do serious, but look, the club is a mess. And I just think that, I don't think we can be sat here this morning going, why is it always us? You know, we're not Mario Balotelli with a T-shirt on. Why is it always us? I think sometimes it's bad luck. Sometimes it's coincidence. But you know what? Shit attracts shit. This club is a mess. And some of the decisions we make bring it on us. We bring it on ourselves. The owners are thugs and it's starting to look half the changing room are too. If we had more class at the top, I think the players follow suit, says Charlie. Should any Man United manager survive 5 years with no title, says Robert. I'm not saying Ten Hag will be here for 5 years, Robert. I'm just saying, if I could get hold of that football club and buy it, if I was in charge of Man United tomorrow, CEO, director of football, recruitment, fitness department, a lot of the coaches, a lot of the players, gone. Not because they're bad people, just I need a clean slate here. I need to know what I'm recruiting. I can't keep mistakes of the past or even take that risk. Stadia, infrastructure, squad, investment, best of the best CEO, sporting director. I'm just going to start it all again. And if I'm going to start it all again, then Robert, you've got to say, you've got to give me time for these people to find their feet, see the problems. I think United just stick a plaster on it. I think they stick a plaster on it and think the leaks are going to stop, and the leaks keep happening. Thanks everyone for watching. See you at 4, if not before. Thank you very much. Take care.